Good morning, namaskar, sat sri akal, adab, bonjour. Welcome to the channel. My name is Kubeir. I am a IRCC licensed immigration consultant, and this channel is all about Canadian immigration news, updates, things you should do, things you definitely should not. Today, we are back with another episode of the Canadian Immigration Weekly Roundup. Routine setup in this one as well. We will go with the PNP draws, whatever has happened with the PNPs, express entry, of course, any other news that might be of interest to anybody out there with regards to Canadian immigration, and then we move on to the question and answers. I have a few video clips to play, give you a bit of information about Bill C-19 as to what to expect with that, and also to talk a little bit about whatever is happening with the international students who are now facing deportation from Canada, and what is it all about. So yes, stay tuned for all of this, and as we go along, more questions that we will answer. Starting with our weekly roundup. Optimism is the faith that leads to achievement. Nothing can be done without hope and confidence. Helen Keller, that's such a great quote. If you're not optimistic about things, well, that's half your battle lost already, because in your mind, you've already made up your mind you're not going to win, kind of a thing. But nothing obviously can be done if you are not hopeful, if you're not confident. So please, no matter what you do in your life, no matter which journey you plan to embark on, always be optimist, always have your faith, and obviously nothing can be done without hope and confidence. This is the Canadian Immigration Weekly Roundup. Topics of discussion: PNPs, express entry, other news, and question and answers as we move and prod along, starting with Ontario's PNP allocation. Well, the good news is finally Ontario has received their PNP allocation. I mean, this was obviously expected, with other provinces getting almost a 50% bump up in their allocation. It was expected Ontario is going to get a similar number. It was not 50%, mind you, but we can live with this increase in the number. They now have 16,500 spots that they would be nominating under the Ontario OINP, Ontario Immigrant Nominee Program. Other provinces who have already made that announcement are Alberta and Manitoba, who are now going to be inviting 9,500 and 9,750. For Ontario, this is pretty cool, right? Pretty big. 16,500 basically means so many of you out there who are depending on Ontario, especially for the human capital priority stream, especially for the Ontario's skilled trade stream, if you have work experience in Ontario, and also the French speaker streams. These are such valuable and important stream. So good luck to everybody with this bump up of nearly 7,750. That is the bump up. The previous allocation was 9,750 for 2022. So this 16,500 means about, no, not 6,750 a bump up in the numbers. Basically, that would mean that the proportional allocations to the human capital priority stream would be roughly about 30% of the total nomination numbers. And you're looking for that many more spots to be given out. So I know a lot of you out there have been anxiously waiting for the human capital priorities draw, general draw, where they invite people not from the tech draw, not now from the health draw, but the other categories like professional categories, the management, accounting, sales, HR, those categories. They haven't had a draw of that nature for a very long time. So I'm just hoping, praying, fingers crossed, forever hopeful that that draw is around the corner. But for the time being, it's something to feel more hopeful and optimistic about. British Columbia, on the 21st of March, BC has invited 202 candidates to apply for the provincial nominee program through the 5 PNP general through the 5 streams. Now, BC PNP, we've been saying this again and again. They are one of the most regular draw conducting provinces because they have a draw every single week. They also have very specific streams. In most of their streams, you need a job offer from the eligible employer in BC. Otherwise, you won't be eligible. The only stream where you don't need it is the international postgraduate, where if you've completed a master's degree in some specific fields, I think there are 7 of them, then you will not need a job offer. You can apply for nomination directly. But other than that, you would need a job offer. But then, because they have been so consistent and in inviting candidates also from healthcare and childcare occupations with a very, very low score of only about 60. That has also encouraged a lot of people who are planning to give another year of studies in British Columbia to take those programs, especially ECE, early childhood educators, because after completing that program, they can then find a job in that field, and by that they would be able to apply under this stream. So overall, not bad at all for BC to be so consistent, because consistency is what we are lacking in some other areas. We'll talk about that. Saskatchewan on the 23rd of March, Saskatchewan finally, I think about a month and a half hiatus there, they invited 184 candidates from Saskatchewan Express Entry stream, and they invited 312 from the Occupation and Demand stream. Obviously, they invited only certain occupations. Now, there were a lot of NOC codes. They're on your screen now. I won't even try to count them out. The thing between Saskatchewan's Express Entry and OID is that if you have an Express Entry stream, or if you are eligible in an Express Entry stream, then you can create your expression of interest, your portal account on the Saskatchewan portal, and you would be under the EE stream or the Saskatchewan's EE stream. But if you are not eligible in the Express Entry, for example, your age or your IELTS or the combination of the two does not allow you to have the FSW eligibility points of 67 or more, you will not be able to create an Express Entry profile. Then the other option for you then becomes OID, Occupation and Demand stream, and you would then you will still be able to you would then still be able to create your portal account on Saskatchewan's website under the OID stream, and hence you would still be eligible. The score, I would hate to say, was not the best, in the sense like it's quite high, 82. How do people get kind of scores of 82 in Saskatchewan? Well, more or less it's job offer or it's the relative. Now, relatives in this case may not have been true, because if your score is 82, okay, and that's what the score is here. If your score is 82, it basically means the maximum, no, actually it can be relatives as well, of course, why not? Because people who are outside Canada at most can score 70 if you do not have any French language skills, or if you do not have any connection to the province of Saskatchewan. Maximum you can score is 70 if you're below the age of 35, you have master's degree, you have CLB 8, you have 10 years of continuous work experience. In the same knock code, you can score 70 at most. But then if you have relatives in Saskatchewan, you can get 20 more points, so you can go to 70. If you can also add French points, you can add up to 10 more points, you can go up to 80. If you have a job offer in the province of Saskatchewan, a verified job offer, LMIA not needed, you can add up to 30 points more. So, there are provisions there by which you can really, really bump up your scores. Of course, job offer relatives have been, I guess, the main contributing factor for Saskatchewan in this particular draw. So that was Saskatchewan's draw. Manitoba also conducted a draw. I think 23rd of March was like a very, very active was very, very active day in terms of the draws that were happening. Manitoba invited 566 candidates through their 3 different streams. Certain occupations were targeted, because now Manitoba has also started conducting a targeted occupation draw, whereby this time they invited knock codes of skilled trades in 7.2 and 8.2 series. 82 invitations were issued to candidates who declared a valid Express Entry profile and job seeker code. So of that, basically only 82 people received nominations or invitations with the Express Entry profile. Ontario, on the 23rd of March, not 25th, because today is 25th, 23rd of March, Ontario also conducted another draw. They invited 746 Express Entry candidates with the skilled trade stream knock code, and that was the stream that they invited them under. And the surprising or the amazing bit is that the CRS score was only 250 to 489, and this is pretty cool, right? But I'm not sure why they kept the high score of 489. Did not make any sense at all. Usually they would always go with the 1 point less than the last Express Entry draw. I'm only assuming they had already made up their mind that they were going to conduct this draw, because Express Entry draw did happen on 1 day earlier than that. But I was just trying to pull up Ontario's website to show you which knock codes were included in this. so that we can get a bit more of an understanding, because Ontario has just released a report and about different occupations they have invited. So you know what, why don't we all take a look at that, because I did not see this report from Ontario earlier, otherwise it would have been part of my weekly roundup. So this is what Ontario has done. They've just issued a report this morning. You can all go to the Ontario's website, OINP program updates, and this is the 2022 OINP results. If at all you were interested, they have given which streams were given how many nominations. This kind of information always helps us to understand how many nominations, how many invitations to expect for that stream moving forward. In this particular one, the most important ones would be obviously the human capital priority stream, right? Here, 2,370 nominations were issued last year. 2,370 nominations out of 9,750 is roughly 25%, I would say, safely. Yeah, roughly less than 25. So if 25% were issued last year, then very quickly, if we calculate how many can we expect this year, then you would have a number of about 4,000-ish, 4,000. That would be the number of nominations you can expect this year with the increased allocation. But this is the kind of information you can get once you get this kind of report from IRCC, from Ontario. 9,750 was the total number of nominations issued. But backtracking, and obviously there are also the knock codes, all the knock codes for the human capital priorities, the top knock codes that they issued out the nominations to. Again, it's always good to know these, have a bit of information on this, because it helps you then project what may be a possibility moving forward. But what we were talking about was the draw, the Ontario's skilled trade stream draw. So they invited these knock codes 7-2 series, as you can see, lots of them, and also 7-3 series, and then one from the 8-2 series. So the requirement for this particular stream is that you should have at least 1 year of work experience in the Ontario's skilled trade occupation as listed over here, and that work experience should be inside Ontario, not only inside Canada, inside Ontario. So I know there are a lot of international students who may not be scoring very high on their CRS score and who are still struggling to figure out what is the best way out. So then this is something which you can consider. Now, we also understand that a lot of these programs are changing. They're always changing. Some programs are existing today. They may not exist a year later, 2 years later. But with Ontario's skilled trade stream, the only solace that I can think of is that there is a huge shortage of the skills trade within the province of Ontario, and of course in Canada as well. So I do not expect them to take away this stream at all, because there is a huge demand and huge shortage of most of the trade occupations. So if you are an international student, you're thinking, what should I do, considering your CRS score is low and will be low even if you get 1 year of work experience in Canada? Because let's say typically you are a student who came to Canada to complete 2-year diploma immediately after your schooling in India or in a different country. So your highest education now probably is only a 2-year diploma. If your 2-year diploma and if your IELTS scores are in the range of CLB 7, CLB 8, then you are going to have a difficult time with competing with the CRS score that is now prevailing in Express Entry. Therefore, streams like these, which can take you right down to 250 as the lowest CRS score. This is incredible in order to take an opportunity, or rather get an opportunity and then move with that. So if you're still considering what you can do, then this is probably what you should be looking at, is gaining 1 year of work experience in a skills trade in Ontario, and thereby then becoming eligible under the stream and then applying for this. So overall, a great stream to be part of. And if you can become eligible, then definitely take advantage of this one. Of course, Express Entry. I mean, how can we not talk about Express Entry? Because IRCC absolutely blew us all out of the water by conducting another Express Entry draw. Absolutely unexpected. One, because it was Thursday, and second, because they had already conducted such a large draw last week of 7,000 invitations. I, for one, definitely was not expecting IRCC to sort of throw in such a beautiful surprise. So what they did is on the 23rd of March, was it 23rd? Was it 20? Okay, I keep forgetting the date. They conducted another draw. 7,000 invitations were issued again. And in the 7,000 invitations, what that did was, because it just happened a week later, they conducted, or rather, they invited 484 candidates. Okay. So yes, this was conducted on the 23rd of March. The 23rd of March, well, plenty of draws were happening on that specific day. It was an all-program draw, and because it was an all-program draw, which basically meant Canadian Experience Class, Federal Skill Trade, FSW, PNPs, everybody were included, and the two back-to-back draws of 7,000 each with a gap of only 7-8 days meant that the score finally breached the 490 fixated number that IRCC for some reason had, and we came down to 484, which is absolutely incredible because, hey, I mean, can you imagine the stress level for all those people who were there in the 480s, wondering what, when, how, what's going on? So pretty good. I mean, obviously for them to have gotten this opportunity. So congratulations to them. After that, we have had a bit of an issue with the ITAs coming through. There are lots and lots of people who reported that they were eligible, of course, because their scores were within the range, and they still haven't received the invitation. But what I understand from a lot of ITAs that we receive for a lot of our clients is that there was a bit of a lag in the system. I got one ITA this morning as well from that draw. So I understand that there has been a bit of lag. Can be the same technical glitch that IRCC has been facing, because of which they probably put a pause in the draw earlier. I just hope this technical glitch does not continue, because that will not be a nice thing to happen, because that would just basically mean they could put a pause again. I am hoping that doesn't happen. So let's not talk about pause in the draws. We want more consistency from IRCC. We want IRCC to be doing what they do best, that is conduct more and more draws, because that is what we would love to see. And Marzonia says we don't want surprises, we want consistency. I absolutely agree with you. Consistency is something which you're looking from IRCC. So the good thing over here was that they conducted a 7,000 people draw. 7,000 profile draw, because it was a back-to-back draw, which basically meant that it was a consecutive draw 1 week after the another. There was not a big bump in the profile numbers between the level of 601 and above, which is mainly the PNPs, 501 and above, which is mainly people who have Canadian work experience, Canadian masters, CLB 9, CLB 10 kind of scores, even bilingual, or a job offer with an LMIA, or a job offer after having completed the 1 year on an ICT work permit. So all those people were part of the 501 bracket. But again, not too many. Thankfully, not too many people. Also looks like a lot of people are not declining their ITAs anymore. So thank God for that. The number of people increased between 490 and 500. Also not too many, only 444. Again, gives you a bit of hope that, not too many people are adding themselves up. So only 1,288 profiles with score of 491 plus. Thankfully, because as I said, it was only 1 week, so not too many there. But the good news is 481 to 490 had a 12,000 people in that range, of which 5,712 have been cleared out, which basically gives you roughly 6,300-ish kind of people who still remain in that pool with the score of 481 and above. So with 6,000, almost half. So even with the score dropping to 484, less than half of that range has been cleared, which tells you that there is a big number there. And that number can keep going up, because a lot of people who are federal skilled workers, they can actually score 481, and therefore with the 481, and I can see that there are a lot of people at the 481 range. So from here on, the pressure is going to be there, even if IRCC chooses to conduct, and this is what we're going to talk about, even if IRCC chooses to conduct another draw of 7,000, which, to be very honest, I'm quite skeptical. I was skeptical with 7,000. I absolutely did not anticipate IRCC to conduct such big draws, because, hey, when has IRCC ever wanted to make people happy? They've always been of their own agenda. But looks like after the previous pause in the draws that they did after the November 23rd with the tier systems, they came back in January, conducted a back-to-back draw, 5,500, 5,500 each on the 11th of January, 18th of January. But then they went back to the regular, wait and see kind of a situation. Now they put a pause in the draws again after the month of February, and then they have now come back with a back-to-back draw of 7,000, even better than 5,500, right? So therefore, I don't expect another draw, definitely not of 7,000. I don't. I mean, it doesn't. The numbers are not adding up for me. But you know what? I would love to be wrong on this one, because seeing another draw of 7,000 would be like unprecedented, first of all, and not unprecedented. It has happened before. I'm going to talk to you about that, but it would be incredible if they conduct a draw of 7,000. What that would do is that would completely clear the 480s if they conduct a draw of 7,000. Not completely, because draw on draw, there will always be about 1,000 to 1,200 people who keep getting added. Plus, there are about 6,300 still in the pool with 481 plus. So 480s will not get cleared out, but we will reach 481, 482 kind of a score if they conduct another 7,000 draw invitation round by next week. Talk. I hope they do that. But will they do that or not is something which you're looking at. Total number of ITAs issued at this point of time is 30,559, which, to be very honest, is quite a big number already within the first 3 months. Average invitations that I expect that they will issue in this year is about 70,000 roughly, taking into account how many quotas are there for this year and the previous backlogs that they already have of clearing the numbers that they already had in their bank. Total number of the immigration target for this year is 82,880. They also will add about 20,000 from the PNPs, but we're also looking at this PNPs number going up again, because Sean Fraser has been talking a lot about the PNP numbers going up. And with that, we expect if this number goes up, then we can also have some expectation there. Now, Bill C-19 implementation later this year. What does that later this year mean? Let me show you what it means. Hold on a bit. I have it here. Take a look at this one.
But when it comes to permanent residency, we've developed some new tools that are going to help better spread out people across Canada. We've had the largest increase in the numbers of people who will come through the provincial nominee program in the history of the annual immigration levels plan just this past year. In addition, we're increasing the numbers through regional programs like the Rural and Northern program or the Atlantic Immigration program. And we've developed a new selection tool through the Federal Express Entry System last year that will take effect in the second half of this year. This is going to allow us to select workers not just based on the highest score, but based on the sector that they plan to work in and the region of Canada that they're going to. So if we come to understand that certain provinces or regions have the capacity to successfully welcome more people and have certain sectors like healthcare or home building that are in demand, that we'll be able to select the workers who are not just the highest scoring, but who are in greatest need in communities that have the capacity to house them and to provide services to them.
So, did you hear what was that from the horse's mouth, or what the horse said? Well, he said second half of this year, and what he was referring to is the implementation of Bill C-19. Second half of this. So earlier, the anticipation was spring. Spring has already started officially in Canada. Now that expectation of Bill C-19 has gone to the second half of the year, which, to be very honest, is a great, incredible, amazing, awesome news for everybody who's an express entry, because that tells them that the regular express entry draws should continue in the fashion that they have been doing it all this while, with Bill C-19 not playing a spoil sport at this point of time. Later this year means anywhere after the month of June. That would be first half of the year. So the second half of the year, that's what he's talking about, that this will be implemented second half of the year, means anytime July onwards. It all depends on, in some other video clips also, Sean Fraser had mentioned that they have been working on a lot of things, that these tools are not yet ready. There is a lot of work to be done, which tells me that obviously there are some more glitches that they need to sort out, some more studies to be done so that they can identify which categories they will want to move ahead with. Time and again, they have been talking about healthcare workers. So Nova Scotia has already identified that they would be allowing nurses to come to nurses to practice, foreign educated nurses to practice in Nova Scotia just by clearing one single exam. Now, if that happens, and that has to start from first week of April. Now, if that happens, it basically means that if nurses are in Canada, whether you are here in an open work permit, visit visa, work permit, whatever that might be, you can actually you can actually clear this exam in Nova Scotia and then be eligible to practice. Similarly, Ontario has also been pumping in a lot of money trying to figure out a better way of giving accreditations and equivalency to the foreign educated credentials, because this has become a huge topic of discussion amongst the lobbying categories and lobbying stakeholders as well, because this is directly impacting the Canadian citizens and population. So if that happens, and when that happens, a lot of healthcare individuals are going to getting an advantage out of this one. You're already seeing Ontario conducting a draw within the OINP healthcare sector, and they have been inviting dentists, physiotherapists, doctors, to be very honest, who otherwise may have not had a chance through any province. I mean, there was no way, right? Because they need a license to practice. But Ontario, without without imposing a requirement for you to have a license to practice, has been inviting these categories of people, which is opening up doors for healthcare workers who otherwise did not have a chance. Ontario has invited almost all the healthcare knock codes, including, of course, nurses as well. So that also gives you an opportunity. That also gives you a bit of an insight as to what Canada must be planning for when they come up with the category-based draws. Another thing, I'm not sure if you were listening carefully to him or not, he mentioned about the locations in Canada. Now, there is another push that they are looking to do, is to sort of push people away from the main metro cities where everybody tends to go to. Ontario, Toronto, Vancouver in BC, Montreal and Quebec. Of course, Quebec is not part of the express entry, but Edmonton, Calgary. So the suggestion would be is when you're creating your, and this is, I'm telling you, this is going to help some people out there. So my suggestion to you is that if you are creating your express entry profile, the first question that comes to you is, which province are you most interested in? I know most of you will click on Ontario, click on BC, click on Alberta, because these are the most desired. I am suggesting to you to choose a province which people would normally not choose. Hey, it's not going to make a difference to you. The reason for that is because as a federal skilled worker, as a Canadian experience class, if you come to Canada on an express entry as a permanent resident, you have the mobility rights. You can live and work anywhere in Canada. So that is not going to make a difference. But here you are expressing your intention to that particular province or that area of Canada, which otherwise a lot of people are not. For all you know, that single click may actually put you in a category which shows that you want to go to these provinces which otherwise people are not very happy to go to, and hence puts you in a category which could give you that benefit that they are looking to give to those people who want to go to the provinces who are otherwise sparsely populated. So, this small tip can actually get you through that. I don't know at this point of time. I'm just assuming, hey, you're not going to lose anything anyways, right? So just go ahead and do it if you can. So that's basically what Sean Fraser was talking about. There is also something else now when we talk about these future trends. But before I get to the future trends and more about that, let's talk a bit more about this. All right. So Bill C-19, as we have spoken about, is later half or the second half of this year. As and when that happens, we will take a look at that. Fun facts, and I discussed this when I was talking about the express entry draw, but this is where I want to talk to you about. So as I said, there is a precedence about conducting a triple back-to-back draw. And the last time it happened was in the year of 2017, when it happened back-to-back every single week for 3 weeks, 5th of April, 12th of April, 19th of April. And the average number of invitations that was the norm at that point of time were about 3,800 being issued for each of these invitations, each of these draws. The final score and after that, there was a big gap. Okay. And there was a big gap of about 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks. And then the score, which was 415 on the 19th of April, the score went up to 435. So the score went up after the big gap. So they conducted these back-to-back draws. The scores really dropped. It dropped right down to 415. And then there was a big gap of about 2.5 weeks. Scores went up again to 435. Then there was a back-to-back draw in 2019, 23rd of Jan, 30th of Jan. Again, the scores, once they once they went back to the regular schedule, the scores went up from 438 to 457. Back-to-back draw again in 2019, December 11th and December 19th. Total number of invitations issued 3,200. Then there was a big gap of 20 days, not just 14 days, but 20 days, almost 3 weeks. This time the score did not really go up a lot because of the number of people in the profile, how many people were getting added, etc. Score only went from 469 to 473. This is the fun with numbers that you can have. Back-to-back draw, which happened in 2020, November 18th and 2020 and 25, the average invitations issued were 5,000. Okay, really big numbers at that point of time. The gap in the draw when it resumed in the normal fashion was only 14 days, and the scores did not change. It was 469. It remained at 469. On the contrary, After the December 29th, after 2 weeks, they conducted another draw, which was on the 23rd of December, which was the last express entry draw before COVID hit. And that was at a score of, this was already COVID, right? And that was at a score of 468. And that's where it stopped. No more express entry draws were conducted for a very long time. Back-to-back draw also happened this year. This was in month of January 11th and 18th in the year 2023, of course. ITAs issued 5,500 average, phenomenal. Then there was a gap of 14 days, and then they conducted an FSW draw, which made no sense, but that was on the 2nd of Feb. The CRS score this time went down from 490 to 489. And as I said, there is precedence. There can be a triple back-to-back draw if, of course, IRCC wants it to happen. The chances of it happening are a bit tight. I would be a bit skeptical to say that. I'm not going to bet on it for sure, but there is precedent. So it can happen. Let's hope and pray that it does happen next week when we look at it. So this was the fun fact that I wanted to talk to you about. But hey, there is one more small thing that I wanted to sort of show you. And this is where my concerns keep propping up about the imbalance in the TRs and PRs. But we'll talk about that later once we have completed our regular express entry and our regular weekly roundup presentation. Now, more immigrants are coming through PNPs. And recently, when the meeting has taken place between all the immigration ministers for different provinces and the federal, they have identified that provincial nominee programs need to get a bit more autonomy in terms of how they conduct their draws, how they choose their people, and they should be given more numbers. So not only have their numbers, that number was increased already by the immigration target levels plan, but they have also now been given target level plans for multi-years. So now they already know by 2025 how many people they will be able to invite. That gives them a bit more discretion in trying to prepare and plan their program. But also the ministers, immigration ministers of different provinces are now aware what IRCC is planning or preparing in terms of the Bill C-19, and they would then also be in a position to attract the kind of people that they are. Therefore, I have a feeling that we are seeing so many draws that are happening now from the provinces itself. For example, Manitoba never conducted a draw with targeted occupation. Now they are. Ontario has put in a big effort in conducting a targeted occupation. So now Ontario's all the draws, except for master's PhD stream, all their draws are now targeted. So they are not conducting a general draw where they just invite a category and top scoring people. No. Now for each of their categories, they are inviting specific occupations. So Ontario is looking at targeted occupation. Alberta already chooses certain targeted occupations. So we don't really know. They never announce, but we already know that they choose. Same thing with Saskatchewan. Same thing with Manitoba. British Columbia, to an extent, is doing general draws in most of the categories, but then they still pick and choose specific occupations. It's only the Atlantic provinces in some programs, they do not specify which occupations, but I think it's coming there as well. So Atlantic provinces at this point of time are the only ones who are not becoming targeted driven at this point of time, but I can foresee that happening as well, because it looks like most of the provinces are moving towards that range. So if you are a person who is looking for getting an advantage with this, then it might be a good idea if you can identify yourself in one of the targeted occupations or gain experience in those targeted occupations. That way you will have the advantage from the PNPs as we move forward, because PNPs probably is going to be the way to go. Now, let's deep dive into deportation. I'm not going to deep dive, to be very honest, in this one, because I think we have done it already a couple of times. We did it last week when we were talking about this. I did another video yesterday as well with a very prominent lawyer, Raj Sharma, who has tremendous amount of experience in litigation within the immigration matters, inadmissibilities. He has fought a lot of cases where people have been reported as inadmissible, misrepresentations. He's already a professor in Queens. He's authored so many books. So you cannot doubt his experience in these things. And when I discussed this whole issue yesterday, and the live video stream is there, you can always go back and check that if you're interested. First thing that came out was that this number of 700 is unverified. Nobody has verified. Officially, there is no number from any of the government agencies which has come out. This number of 700 is something which the media somewhere has distorted and brought out that number. That is number one. Number two is that this inquiry into fraudulent documents has been happening since 2014. So this number of 700 is not suddenly that one fine day they have gone out and issued 700 deportation orders. No, it has been an ongoing inquiry. You can see from a lot of reports that are coming out, the people have already been called by CBSA maybe last year, 2 years back. They're already going through this. It's only now that the media is getting the wind of it and they're catching up. And also the document, or rather big portion of this fraud was committed by one single agent, one single company in India. But it's not that there are other people who are not involved. Also that it's not only one college, but there are quite a few colleges whose documents were fraudulent and whose documents were doctored and submitted on students' behalf. But what that tells you is that we get so desperate with the whole idea of wanting to make something work for us that we are willing to believe and that we are willing to spend money on some people who we might even know are shady in what they are doing. And when you come to Canada with this kind of a situation, even if you claim to be a victim, and that's what most of the students are saying they are, and of course, to an extent, I agree and I sympathize and I empathize with that yes, they have been victim of this whole fraud, but they have to take the blame. At the end of the day, you are not small children who had no clue. You were the ones who have signed your own immigration papers. You have signed your documents. You have signed your forms where you have said everything in this application I have presented is true. And with that, you have taken the responsibility. It's unfortunate that this is how it is. And there might be a few remedies from the situation, mainly to do with humanitarian and compassionate grounds. But by and large, if you are going to claim that you were not aware and that you did not know, or that the signatures are yours, but you did not check, then you're not going to get out of this one. This is misrepresentation. This does call for a ban of 5 years. Even if you do get married to a Canadian citizen or a permanent resident, this whole fraudulent activity that has been conducted and that you have been convicted of, you will not be able to get away with it, and you may not have a pathway through that as well. Claiming refugees out of after this whole thing, suddenly claiming refugees, that will also not work in this situation. Refugees does not mean that if your status in Canada is not working out, you just go and file for a refugee application, and that's not how it works. Being a refugee should not be taken lightly. It's a term that indicates a person who has gone through a lot of mental, physical, emotional torture, has so many situations where that they're running away from for their life. So they're running away for the fear of persecution. So don't take that term lightly just because you didn't get the status. So the idea would be to consult somebody who's a legal professional, understand what your options are if you're one of those students, and then treat it in a manner. Even if and obviously this is an ongoing investigation, which basically means this is not the end of it. This is not the last of what you've heard. What we are hearing now is that the number of people who have already been investigated or who have been given their deportation orders is until 2018, 2019, which basically means after that investigation still continues. So if at all you were one of those individuals who may have been involved in this, knowingly, unknowingly, then you are better off talking to somebody in advance. So don't sort of, let this go. If at all you have even an iota of doubt that you may have been involved in a situation like this, then make sure that you do consult somebody before it hits you. Because once it hits you, then there would not be too many options, or the legal remedy might be just that much more stressful and expensive. So yes, that's basically what we want to discuss about. And also on that note, what I want to tell you is that I guess that's pretty much all that we had on this stream. Yeah, that's it. Connect with us on social media platforms, and of course hit the like button, subscribe, the normal thing that we say, right? But what I want to talk to you about, because of so much of fraud that is happening, especially from India, international students still tend to believe the agents for a variety of reasons. One, because the consultants in Canada, we charge more than what the consultants, or rather the agents in India, are charging. Obviously, because our time here in Canada and the expenses and the cost of living is definitely higher, and there's no comparison in that aspect. At times you get commissions from the college, and at times you don't get commissions from the college. That is quite normal. Handling applications of students who have had previous refusals is slightly more complicated in the way the application is prepared. So here today, what I'm announcing to you or telling you is that we, Team Ask Kubeir, are now preparing or rather launching for international students a way of handling their applications. So they pay us a very, very nominal amount. So this is not applicable to all international students. It's applicable to an international student with some prerequisites and preconditions. One, that we get the admission for you so that we can at least get some commissions from the college if you're successful, that you're of the age of 25 and below, and you haven't ever applied for a study permit in Canada, you have never been refused a visa. And under those certain specific conditions, we will be able to handle your application for a very nominal cost of, let's say, about $200 or $300. But all that information comes out next week when we have everything ready to make that announcement. But this is to help you avoid this kind of fraud. You're dealing with a licensed consultant. You're dealing with a credible consultant. We can assure you that there is no fraud happening as far as we are concerned. You will have the access to your college portals and be able to independently check whether your documents issued from your college are genuine. We will not charge you money. We do not want your money. You will be paying your fee directly to the college, so you will have your official fee receipt. You would be paying your GIC directly to the bank, so you would have your receipts of your money that you have spent. The money charged by these illegal agents, consultants out there in India, otherwise, is it to the tune of 20 lakhs, 25 lakh rupees. We are not charging you that kind of money. We're looking only for $200 or $300, basically to cover up the costs of the amount of time and effort it takes to prepare an application. There is no successful application formula. So therefore, the understanding is that we understand not all applications will get approved. It's the law of numbers. It's the law of averages, if you want to call it. But we will put in our best efforts. That's something which we can assure you. But this is something which we will be doing from next week, making an announcement of that very soon. That's just to let you know that this is what we want to do in order to curb these kind of frauds that are happening out there. Right? We drop our charges completely so that allows you to access more reliable institutions and therefore avoid yourself of any frauds. Yeah, so therefore subscribe to the channel, like the video, and pass it around and share it with your friends so they also know what's happening. Now, TR to PR. Now, TR to PR is such a funny story in the sense, like, it happened during the pandemic, and when it happened, it was a great program. While it ran, it gave an opportunity to a lot of people who otherwise may have not become a PR or would have had a great difficulty. 90,000 spots were open. A lot of people have already become PR. A lot of people will be becoming PR by the end of 2024 because that is a timeline given by IRCC. A lot of people have been hoping for TR to PR kind of a program to return. In my opinion, it's not going to return because Sean Fraser has said it so clearly in so many occasions. But what has been a bigger concern, and what I've been talking about earlier as well, and that has to do with the imbalance in the numbers between TRs and PRs. So when I'm saying TRs, I'm talking about temporary residents. I'm talking about that number collectively. We have at this point of time roughly 1.2 million temporary residents in Canada. The number is growing. If you add to them the Ukrainian people who are also coming in, obviously on study permits, on work permits, they would also be looking to find a slot within the permanent resident. They do not have a separate program. So this would also be part of the economic programs. And there are the Syrians, there are the Afghans, there are the Hong Kongers, and then there are the Iranians. All of these collectively are also getting added into this big number of temporary residents in Canada, whether on study permit, whether on work permits. And therefore, the number of slots that are available within the economic category for permanent residents is just not enough. Again, we discussed this with Raj Sharma yesterday as well, and he felt that there could be a possibility of amnesty. It has happened before, but I don't see an amnesty happening for 1.5 million people because there is just not enough room. But this imbalance is bound to create a problem. But let's see what the horse had to say for this one.
But I've been tasked by the Prime Minister to create a pathway to permanent residency for international students and for temporary foreign workers. Yeah. One of the things that we need to be careful about, though, is because there's been such growth in the international student program, for example, we now have more international students in Canada in a given year than we have spaces for permanent residents in our entire immigration levels plan. So it won't be the case that every single person who comes here temporarily will have an opportunity for a TR to PR like we did during the pandemic. But we're working now to develop a tool to figure out how we can identify those students or temporary workers who are likely to qualify for permanent residency.
There you go. There are not enough slots available for people to become PR, even if you came to Canada as an international student or foreign worker. And therefore, Bill C-19 is going to play a big part or a big role. It is going to give more advantage to people who are inside Canada. The tool is primarily meant for that. It is going to be a TR to PR kind of a thing. However, it will not be like, it doesn't give you a blanket eligibility for everybody who has completed their education apply, not kind of that kind of a thing, but more to do with specific categories, specific work experiences, specific background and education qualifications, and specific destinations where you want to make Canada your home. So all of that collectively is going to matter. That is the update for the TR to PR or Bill C-19 collectively. All right, that was all that I had from my side for today's presentation and a weekly roundup. I hope I haven't depressed you guys or demotivated you too much. The idea is not that. The idea is to basically give you a realistic picture of what's happening in Canada, what you can expect as we move forward, and how you can prepare and plan your journey if you're making Canada your destination of choice. Moving on to the questions, but if you guys are still here, then ek subscribe to banta hai, ek like to banta hai. Yeah? So hit the subscribe button, hit the like button so that this video goes out to more and more people. And moving on to some of the questions. Okay, starting with this one. Thank you for the super chat, Sumit. It says, do I need to disclose a personal loan in Ontario's human capital priority application, irrespective of the outstanding amount? If yes, how should I do it? Well, good question, because Ontario, in its proof of fund requirement, does not indicate that you have to disclose all your liabilities, disclose your loans. However, it's always a good idea, because then they can always come back and ask you for it if it is already reflecting in your application, in your documentation. Because if you have a loan, it would reflect a EMI or a monthly installment, and that could indicate you may not have sufficient funds, because then they will take the net balance available. And therefore, it's always a good idea to indicate that you do have certain liabilities, and that those liabilities you have a plan to clear. And you can always add a cover letter with a small paragraph saying, this is the total outstanding you have, this is a personal loan, and that you intend to clear it by your salary, or by the time you have left your country and come to Canada. Then your parents will take care of it, and they will be the ones who will be handling it. And that's probably something that you can do. I always recommend you do it, because you will be doing it to IRCC anyways, right? So may as well add that to Ontario as well. Keep yourself clear. Don't want to get into some additional document requests kind of a scenario, and that way it just sort of goes into much more better processing. That's very thoughtful. Thank you. I mean, I wasn't sort of trying to say anything differently. I'm just trying to portray the things are the way they are. Thanks a lot. I got an invite. Well, great. I'm glad people have been getting the invitations, because as I said, there was a bit of a lag in Express Entry. A lot of people were not getting it and they were quite stressed. Well, I'm hoping most of you have already gotten it now. The law does not protect the dupes. Practice vigilance when applying for immigration anywhere. I absolutely agree with you. That's such a intelligent statement to make, because it obviously makes sense. You should not be signing any document where you don't even know what that includes, or if you haven't vetted all the papers in it. Because as far as Canadian immigration is concerned, if it is your application, even if your consultant prepared the application, even if your lawyer prepared that application, what is included in that application is entirely your responsibility. It is not the consultant's responsibility. So as an individual who is submitting your application, you should know exactly what's going on in your application and if it is true or not. At the end of the day, the agent or the consultant will just sort of shrug their shoulders and walk away. It will be you who will be facing the brunt of it. So you should always know what's going on in there and make sure it's true and correct. Okay, let's start from the top. Okay, Phoenix, thank you for the super chat. I got PPR and my country of residence is India. Is it necessary to land in Canada from India, or can I board flight from any country? Also, CPR is issued by New Delhi. Okay, this is a very common question, and a lot of people get confused with these kind of things, though it really doesn't matter. So if you have received your COPR, no matter who is the country or which country issued your COPR, or where you were when you got your COPR, or which country you were resident from, you can land in Canada from anywhere in the world. So after receiving your COPR, you could take a holiday somewhere, and then from there on, after a few days, come to Canada. Canada is not checking which country you are coming from. Is that where we issued your COPR? There is no such problem. You can absolutely travel to Canada from anywhere in the world, any destination, stop somewhere else, have transits, have holidays, what it says on your COPR as a country of residence, that has no relevance as to whether that country should be the one from where you should travel. You can travel from anywhere to Canada. Welcome to Canada. When you're here, you'll become a PR. So that is also taken care of. Mozam, sorry about that. Unfortunately, I don't see any question there. Will you be talking about Alberta? I did talk about Alberta. The problem with Alberta is that they do not issue or notify or publish the information under which they are selecting the candidates who they are selecting. And because of that, there is nothing much to talk about Alberta, in the sense like there are no knock codes. Nobody knows who they're inviting. They announce that they've invited 100 people, 200 people, 150 people, 300 people, lowest CRS score of 300. But more than 300, there are more than 100,000 people. So who got invited? We don't know, unless obviously either we have a client or some members of the group who come back and inform us about it. There is no way of knowing who is it that gets invited in Alberta. Tushar, thank you for the super chat. Hope to get an ITA in the next draw. After PCC, have 15-day trip outside India before EAPR. Will it make PCC invalid upon re-entering India, or is that only for other country? If you are a resident of India, your PCC is valid for 6 months from the date of issue, regardless of you taking trips in and out of India for holiday, for business, or whatever, because you are still a resident of India. So whether you leave India, come back, that does not change the conditions or the requirement for the police clearance for your home country or country of residence. What changes is that if that country is no longer your country of residence, then your police clearance should be issued from that country after the last day of your stay. So if you are residing in that country, after you have left that country, only then the police clearance should have been issued, so that it includes your entire duration of stay. And it remains valid until you have visited that country next time. And that next time could be even for 1 hour. Then the PCC is no longer valid. All right. So this is because it does not cover your entire duration of stay. And this is the whole logic. So if you are in Canada, in India, and that's your country of residence, you can travel in and out. There is no problem. Your PCC remains valid. Ramesh, thank you for the super chat. Got ITA 484 draw. My CRS score is 497. Claimed points for 3 years. CEC. I took 2-month vacation out of 15-month. Can I submit my PR now? My 2-year CEC 487. How I can explain in LOE? You know what? I am very confused with the question. I don't understand what you're trying to say here. The point is, if your CRS score, even with 2 years of work experience, is 487, which is above the score of 484, so I don't think you have a problem at all. Just continue with your application. There is nothing much to explain. Even if you had a 2-month vacation over a 3-month period, that should be very much within the period of allowance of having vacation as part of your employment. So I don't see any issue here. I don't see anything to be explained. Simply go ahead and submit your application, because as a Canadian experience class, even if you have 2 years of experience, you will be eligible. Also keep in mind, Canadian experience class is 3 years of work your Canadian experience should be within the last 3 years. So if your work experience is of 3 years, it should be within the last 3 years. So you have to be very careful with the dates to dates match. So therefore, I think you should consider 2 years of work experience as to be more comfortable with the whole thing, and then continue with that. I don't think you'll have a problem. You'll be fine to go with this. Okay, tons of questions. They keep coming through. Okay. Sorry, I'm just going to take some questions very quickly before I move on. It's already 11:30. Need to get on with some other work. I applied with my work permit with my family details. Meanwhile, I'm blessed with a new baby. I've paid the fees, raised the forms. I still do not. It's still not added to the GCK. Well, you will need to raise the web form, inform IRCC that there is you've been blessed with a baby, and then IRCC at some point of time should send you an application kit. Mind you, this is change in family circumstances. Even if your PR application is, this is work permit. Poof. Okay, if this is work permit and you'll have to wait for your work permit to be approved before you can do something. If not, you can simply apply for your baby, and then in your application for your baby's visitor visa or TRV, in that you provide details of your work permit application so that this application can be linked to yours. For a minute, I thought this was PR application. This is not. Sorry. I got IT on March 15, passport expiring Feb 24, sent passport to renew. Should I wait or can I submit my EE application with old details? Submit your application with your current valid passport, and once you get the new passport, then you inform IRCC by raising a web form with a copy of your new passport. Okay, Muthu Krishnan, thank you. I don't understand why OINP did a HCP draw of 481 to 489 when IRCC cleared half the scores, 489, 409 new draw. Most people who submitted are likely to withdraw. Is there any grand plan going on? Well, the thing is, so when Ontario conducts these draws, so it's not like the federal government and the provincial government are having a conversation on a day-to-day basis. Hey, pick up the phone. Listen, guys, what are you doing? Are you planning an express entry draw? What is your score? Tell me so that no, there is nothing of that sort happening. There is no communication. I wish there was better communication. There isn't any. That's number one. Number two is that not everybody will withdraw their applications. Most of them might not withdraw their applications because, hey, they might want to come to live in Ontario anyways. Plus, having a nomination gives you a little bit of backup. God forbid, in the case your application excuse me. God forbid, in case your express entry application is rejected under R10, you may not have another chance in express entry if the scores have gone up or if there is a pause. But with Ontario, you might still be able to get back into the pool by relinking your nomination to the new profile. So there is a little bit of a backup plan as far as nomination is concerned. But I agree with you. It doesn't make any sense, 481 to 489. It only means that Ontario will be looking to conduct more draws and giving those spots to other people. Express entry was has never been consistent. It's always throwing a lot of surprises our way, sometimes pleasant, sometimes unpleasant. And the pause in the draws, I don't think it was planned either. I think they're having a lot of glitches in their system. They're having a lot of issues with the system. The whole factor of planning Bill C-19 by March obviously has not happened. I think it's still a work in progress. The whole idea of the tier system changes, even that continued to create a lot of issue. So I think they have a lot of issues in the system. And with that, they did not plan the pause. And once the pause did happen and then they started conducting the draws again, this is something like a last minute thought in terms of how many invitations should we issue. The think tank is saying, okay, let's clear the backlog that we have, that kind of a thing. Because part of clearing out these profiles, mind you, it is not again entirely for FSWs, because majority of the FSWs are stuck at 481. It's again people who are being cleared out, majority of them, the 484s, the 480, the 490s, the 490 plus. A large majority of them is Canadian experience. So IRCC is not giving, or rather doing, any favors for people who are outside Canada. At this point of time, their intention is still to clear out as many international students, foreign workers inside Canada who have work experience inside Canada, who have some or the other connection to Canada. That is the effort, that is the attempt. So for a minute, if we start thinking that Canada is doing something or IRCC is doing something to benefit FSWs at this point of time, then I think we will be mistaken. Because until now, I haven't seen anything or any sign of that happening. Only once the scores drop below 481 will I start thinking, okay, IRCC is back to providing some relief to people who are outside Canada as well. At this point of time, I don't see that. At this point of time, I only see them giving more relief or trying to provide relief. Because look at it this way, who gets a score of 484? The only time you get a score of 484 and above is either you have a sibling in Canada, you have a PhD, you have a job offer, you have some or the other Canadian connection, or of course you're bilingual. Okay, all of these are profiles that Canada will be giving advantage anyways to. Okay, so that leaves you with people who are a typical profile of an individual who is single, master's degree, CLB 10, 3 years of work experience, 29 years and below. 481. You can't get more than 481. It's mathematically not there. So therefore, if you are a person who is able to get an Ontario notification of interest or this, then I would continue to go with that. But yes, I agree with you. At this point of time, it doesn't make sense. I'm sorry, I deviated a bit from the actual question, but this is something which I guess we will know in time, because for all the slots that they haven't filled out, those will remain. They will then give it out to somebody else, because notifications of interest will expire after 45 days, number one. Number two, people who will withdraw from the OINP, again, those slots will also go vacant, which only means at a later date, when the scores have dropped below more, you will see more people in human capital priority stream getting the benefit. One more question. Could you please reiterate your suggestions on using PF as proof of funds over a above bank statement which has a gift deed? Well, as far as provident funds is concerned, there is always a bit of a caveat there. You will need to get a letter from the PF holding authority stating that these funds are available without any restrictions or without any holds. Some companies, there could be a hold of 3 years, 5 years after you have left. So if you can get a PF statement, you can get the PF letter, then you may be able to claim it. Otherwise, I would always go with the bank statements and liquid funds or FDs as proof of funds. It's always, I like to keep it much more stress-free rather than having any kinds of losing my sleep over these kind of issues in proof of funds. I have a bachelor's degree in engineering from Mumbai University. If I get a 1-year PG diploma in data science from IIT Bangalore, will it be considered as 2 degrees criteria? Well, yes, if you get evaluation for both of them. The requirement for 2 degrees or more is that one program should be at least a 3-year program or a bachelor's degree. The second program could be 1-year diploma, 2-year diploma, another bachelor's degree. And collectively, then this gives you points for 2 or more degrees in that manner. Okay, let me take this question because I think he is quite... Akash has been sending this question. Amnesty means please throw some quick lights. Well, amnesty basically means that once the government identifies that there is a certain section of people, they give them a blanket eligibility to apply for permanent residence. For example, they said 2023 postgraduate work permit holders will get work permit extension. This is a sort of amnesty. Everybody whose work permits were expiring in 2023, postgraduate work permits, all of them can now get 18-month extensions. This is a sort of amnesty. They could do this with, let's say, they've done this with the construction workers in Ontario. Even if they were out of status, they can now, apply under the Ontario's program where they would become eligible and they would also get a nomination. That is an amnesty. Amnesty is something when they come out with a blanket provision to give a relief to certain segment of people under that provision to regularize their status or leave the country or apply for a certain status which otherwise they would not have been eligible for. That is what it means. Okay, very quickly taking last few questions before I scoot off. I know I will not be able to answer all the questions. I therefore request you, after the video is done, please post your questions in the comments below the video so I can come back later in the day and then respond to that. I have a valid offer letter from Canadian employer and my work permit is processed. Currently, I'm a tourist visa. My CRS is 43. Please suggest. I am not sure what kind of suggestion you need from me. If your work permit is processed, you can get Canadian work experience. You're at 483. If a draw happens, whenever it happens next week or a week after, hopefully you might get invited and you can then continue with that. So I'm not sure what you were looking for from my side. My CRS is 486. I didn't update my profile before this draw, but my profile still shows submitted on 9th November. I updated the information today and now it shows transmitted. Will I get an ITA? Well, the idea is on the day that the draw happened, if your profile was eligible with the score above the draw score or that same score and you were not affected by the tiebreaker, then you would get an ITA. Otherwise, you would have to wait for the next draw, but you'll have to wait for that. I am at the age of 47 looking for PNPs in IT sector. Would it be a likely option this year? Well, each province has a different program. You will have to check individual provinces' criteria, and then if you're eligible, then you can apply accordingly. Okay, last question before I will scoot off. I'm planning to submit my application under the AIP program. Should I do the medical exam before or after the government requests it? Well, under the AIP, there is no condition or requirement to upload it upfront. It's your decision. If you want that process to happen faster, you can always upload it upfront if you wish to, or you could choose to wait. The decision is absolutely yours. Right. One more small announcement before I go. I know 7,000 people received their ITA last week. 7,000 of you received your ITA now, which is pretty incredible. So what we have done is we have prepared a master class, but this is only for people who are inside Canada, inside Ontario, inside Toronto GTA area. Why? Because this is an in-person master class. One of our licensed immigration consultants would take you step by step. Tomorrow, this is happening actually tomorrow, and I think I have 2 or 3 more spots available. So in this, it's an in-person masterclass whereby the licensed consultant will go through the whole application on the screen, and you can see it. You can have your own laptops, you can log into your own profiles, and as the consultant is going through the forms, you can go through the forms of yours. You can ask questions during that whole session. It's a group session. And the consultant is also going to review one of your documents, any one document. There is also provision of one email follow-up for your query that you might have. And collectively, it gives you a good insight. So at a very nominal cost of $299 US, we give you an option to come and sit with a licensed consultant, go with your application step by step, see how you can prepare it, how you should prepare it in a good manner, how you can put all your documents together, how you will format them, what kind of documentation, what you should avoid, what you should not avoid. So if you have received your ITA in Express Entry, don't miss this one. It's happening tomorrow, 26th of March, Sunday, 2 p.m. at our office, which is here. So by all means, go to this link, register if you're still interested. I think, as I said, I have 2 or 3 slots remaining open because we have kept it very, very small. I did not want it to be a large, big group so that it goes out of hand and people do not get that attention they were looking for. But as I said, if you have an ITA, don't miss this opportunity. We will not do this again and again because there's only so much time you can squeeze out on a Sunday and try to do this. And the reason we did it on a Sunday is because people who otherwise are working can, make this happen. So make use of the opportunity. That's basically all that I have. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel because the numbers going up is always a good thing. And I shall see you next time. Until then, take care, stay safe, and be good.